Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg regular council meeting for February 14th, 2023 to order. The time is 8:05 p.m. We are at the Twinsburg Government Center Council Chambers. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mr. Deeds?
Here.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mrs. Labby?
Here.
Thank you, Shannon. At this time, I would ask us to join Mr. Fury, who is going to lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Mr. Fury?
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that will affect our residents and the businesses and our dedicated city employees. Bless those away from us serving to protect our country. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Note for those of you watching out in YouTube land, I do apologize for our late start this evening. We had a pretty lengthy caucus. If you weren't watching that meeting, and literally just concluded, took a 5-minute recess. So we do try and stay punctual, stick with that 7:30 start time, but given the voluminous amount of material to get through at the caucus meeting, we went a little over today. So thank you for your patience. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone if they've had their chance to review the minutes of the regular council meeting from January 24th, and if so, is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Mr. Fury made a motion.
Second.
Mr. Post, second. Any additional discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Abstain.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
All right, approval of the minutes passes 6-0. Moving along to awards and presentations. Do we have any presentations this evening, Shannon?
We do not.
All right. Do we have any audience participation this evening, Shannon?
We do. We have one. Bob Hughes?
Mr. Hughes? Just state your name and address, sir.
Sure. Good evening, Council and Mayor Bob Thews, 2229 Demi Drive in the Meadowwood Plan. I'll make this as quick as possible because of the schedule tonight. But I worked multiple years for consulting companies. And what was brought up by Mr. Clark is absolutely critical. Deliverables, measurable deliverables are important on that contract because saying you got this part of the finished is an opinion, okay? Unless you have something that says we expect this, and this done in this phase, it doesn't have to happen. Now, when I worked with a consultant, and we did multi-million-dollar contracts, we defined it because we wanted to let them know what we're going to accomplish and on down the line. But we still had people that argued, even though it was on black and white, that wasn't right. I'm just saying, if you don't define it, they'll define it, and it may not be what we want. So that's it. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mr. Hughes. I do know, just to reiterate and to respond, I know the biggest reasons that ZoneCo was ultimately selected was for their community involvement and collaborative process. So I know that the administration, specifically our Economic Development Director, Rebecca Ziegler, did spend some time on that. But I do appreciate you and Mr. Clark bringing that to our attention, and we will certainly follow up and make sure that literally we are getting what we paid for. So thank you. Mr. Post?
And also, all of the bids came in within, they were different, of course, but this one was a little bit more, but it had much more community response. They were going to work with the community more. So it's not like the others were so far down and this one was way more. They were all within the same ballpark. We chose this one more because to many of your concerns in previous that you guys wanted the community to be involved as much as possible. And so we made sure to choose this one because of all of your concerns for having the community involved. So we were willing to spend the extra money for that. So
Thank you, Mr. Pope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council communication and committee reports. Mr. Deeds, good evening. We'll start with you tonight.
Thank you.
Very well.
I've got, there was no BZA meeting this month due to nothing on the agenda, so from that is a good thing. I did attend the Jedi meeting last night, which was a night with Police Chief Mason, and I will say this, we didn't have huge community involvement on that. I wish we had better community involvement. If you were there last night, I know Mrs. Walker and Mrs. Labby were there, along with the mayor. I was unbelievably proud of the police department. The amount of training and the dedication that these guys have and the care that they have for the people in the community, it literally would bring a tear to your eyes. I mean, I was blown away by what these guys go through, guys and ladies, what they go through, and you know, the whole, you know, part of the whole Jedi theme is diversity, and you look at our police department and they're diverse, and I know we see things in other parts of the country, you know, the George Floyd issue, the issue in Memphis, and you say that can never happen here, and you can never say never, right? You never know, but boy, I was impressed by just the camaraderie and the care that these guys had for each other, and it blew me away. I just very, very impressed. That's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Mrs. Walker, good evening.
Oh, good evening. I've never been second before.
You're second tonight. How about that?
Next time
Okay.
she's first.
Yeah, you go first next time.
Well, that's up to us, Scott.
We got to figure it out. Now that I know, we're going to put you in rotation, top of the order.
You don't have to do that. Good evening, everyone. I attended the Black History Celebration at the high school on February 7th, and it really was a great event. The auditorium was almost full, and the program that they had and the singing, it was just phenomenal. You know, everyone had tears in their eyes. It was just such a movement when you see a collective group of people coming together as one. It was very, very nice. They did ask about the mayor and council, and I think, Mayor, you had another engagement, and I said, sometimes when you don't know, because I found out at the last minute, and because I had talked to Mr. Barr about it to get our pictures taken, but they didn't let me know until 30 minutes before the show, so I wasn't going to call you, Scott, and tell you, you know, you got 15 minutes to get ready and come down. But it was absolutely phenomenal. What they want, they said next year, if we have a committee, a Black History program, that we are more than welcome to have it at the Twinsburg High School auditorium. There's ample parking, and they said if we need any help, they will come and help us. And I think that's great, because we're here to work together and not divide ourselves, regardless of what situation we're in. I also want to give a thanks to Chief Mason, and I know he's not here right today. And there was an incident that happened in, it's in my Ward 2, and people were speeding in Lake Plata area. I'll just give you where it is. And people were speeding, and I mean, there could have been accidents. They were running through stop signs. And I did talk to Chief Mason about that. He put speeding signs up, he put bumps up. You know, he connected with the mayor and me, and it was really great, because he followed up with me and told me everything's fine. I drove by there, and you never know the difference. People are driving 20, 25 miles. They're driving the speed limit. They're not going crazy. And so that's another feather in the police department's help, because they really care about the city, and they're like, if you have a problem, they'll handle it. Yesterday, I attended the Jedi subcommittee. There was a question and answer session, and Chairman Dr. Jeff Tyus of the police department regarding Jedi. They just did a phenomenal job. I really didn't know that the police department did that. I was overwhelmed. I was so impressed. So I feel that this is something that we'll probably have maybe later on this year or next year. And it was great. Mrs. Labby was there, Mr. Mayor was there, and Mr. Deeds was there, and it was just great to see everybody there. On Wednesday, February 22nd, at the Twinsburg Library from 6:30 to 7:30, I've been chosen to speak at the library regarding diversity. So I'm just letting council know. I hope there's room, and that's February 22nd on a Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. So please come out. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Mrs. Labby, good evening.
See how you jump? You never know. You never know when you're going to be up.
We ready?
I am ready.
Although you're out
Thank
there on
you.
the list.
I did attend the Public Works today. Thank you, Nate. You did a great presentation, and you answered all my questions. And you guys are kind of like the unsung heroes in Twinsburg, right? So shout out to you guys, because I know you're worth your weight in gold. So it's good stuff. I attended Jedi also last night. Chief Mason had 8 of his staff present for a question and answer session. It was taped by Mark, and it will be available on our YouTube channel for everyone to view, probably by next week. Right, Mark? Yes. It's just a wonderful presentation. I wish more people could have attended, and that's why I'm going to encourage you to come to the Jedi Outreach Program. The next one is February 22nd at 6:30 for Black History Month, where our own Miss Walker will be speaking. So I attended the ARB meeting on February 22nd. The following cases were approved. Case 230207, a sign was approved for Run Engineering, 2451 Enterprise Parkway. Also case 230103, to improve an existing sign for PK Financial, 8054 Dara Road. The next meeting is Thursday, this coming Thursday at 6 o'clock. So Parks and Recs meeting, next meeting will be February 23rd in Chambers at 6:30. Highlights of their programs this month include Everyone's an Artist, February 25th, and the President's Day Pool Party, February 20th from 12 to 3. I know my kids always enjoyed that back in the day. Also, the seniors sign up for Sip and Paint, February 21st, and register now for Ohio Theater Assisted Living, the musical. Doesn't that sound like fun? I also attended the Twins Days meeting on February 1st. There are 376 registered twins.
Wow.
They're having an issue with their tent people. I know they're going to meet with the mayor on that. They're also looking for a nonprofit to help run their beer garden. It does have to be a nonprofit. The next meeting is March 1st, 7 o'clock in the Twins Days office. I also met with the CIC on February 9th, and I'm sure Bill will have a more thorough report for us. Thank you, Bill. That's all for tonight. Thank you.
You're busy,
That's the beer garden.
Busy.
busy. Thank you, Mrs. Labby.
Busy, right?
Mr. Post, I'm going right down the list.
I had no idea I was next.
You're number 4.
I had no idea I was
All
next.
right, okay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. That's hard to follow. Charter review does not meet for a while, but I want to remind everybody on council to read their charter, come up with any issues you may or may not have, and report back this week to Ms. Collins. Thank you. And then, Planning Commission, we did not meet in January, but we do have our next meeting February 27th here in council chambers at 7 o'clock. I did also attend the Public Works tonight. Nate had a great presentation, and I will allow Mr. Bellin to talk more about that, as he is the esteemed president of the world to that, to Public Works. And that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Post. Mr. Bellin, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. I wasn't at the last council meeting in January, so it's good to be back with you here this evening. I did attend this evening's Public Works. As it has been mentioned, Nate gave us a pretty outstanding presentation about not only the current wastewater treatment plant, but also the changes that are coming down the pike. So we have two pieces of legislation this evening that we will be voting on, both pertaining to that project. Essentially, we're in the design phase of this particular project, and we are orchestrating, for lack of a better term, three major functions or three major pieces within the wastewater treatment plant, including a 1 million gallon concrete tank, a disinfection system, and a tertiary treatment system as well. The current system is aging. We're getting to the point where we can't get replacement parts. We're actually making replacement parts for some of these pieces, so this is definitely a project that is needed. So again, we will be voting on two pieces of legislation this evening. And I'd just like to thank Nate for the presentation. It was outstanding. The next meeting of the Public Works Committee will be on April 11th at 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The Finance Committee will meet on Tuesday, February 28th at 6 p.m. The Safety Committee will meet on Tuesday, March 14th at 6 p.m., also here in Council Chambers. Nothing further this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Fury, good evening.
Good evening and happy Valentine's Day. I attended the CIC meeting on February 9th. Items for discussion were potential TIF district, which is tax incremental financing for the downtown development area. This is a vehicle to lock property taxes that are certain at today's rates, and as development is done and property values go up, the difference is put into a fund for community projects as sidewalks, flowers, lights, things to beautify the area and make it more walkable. So we discussed that. CIC is in the process of selling some property on Haddon Road that was donated. Any funds will be just turned back into the CIC for future use. We did talk about the downtown redevelopment center or redevelopment project. There seems to be much more activity now, so more things to come in the near future. We'll be promoting an audit by Perry & Associates that is required annually, be posted on our website as we are a 503c or a 503c organization. And our next meeting will be March 9th at 5 p.m. in Council Chambers. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Since our last meeting, only the Public Works Committee has met for me. Mr. Bellin did an excellent job summarizing Nate's presentation this evening. I do thank him for his time and his due diligence. I think it's important to say, because I don't think it can be said enough, that our wastewater enterprise fund is essentially a self-sustaining fund, and that basically means that there is more money in there at the end of the year than we need to operate our wastewater facility. And I think that's important. We tip our hats to those fine folks over there that do something that a lot of us don't want to do, but they manage to do it at a minimum of cost to the taxpayer. So thank you for that. The next Safety Committee meeting, Mr. Bellin mentioned, is scheduled for March 14th. I know specifically I had a few residents reach out to me about a traffic crash that occurred at the intersection of Glenwood and Timothy Lane. I would encourage any residents from the Timothy, Alling, Glenwood area, if they do want to attend the Safety Committee meeting on the 14th. I do believe we'll have possibly the police chief and certainly the city engineer. We've asked them to kind of look and address some of those concerns, and I believe the mayor may have some things he wants to add about that. But do appreciate it when people bring issues like this to our attention, and we do expect to address that at the Safety Committee meeting. So again, that is scheduled for March 14th. That's a council meeting evening. I believe 6 p.m. is typically when those kick off. I don't have any other council or committee reports. I will be mentioning that we are going to be having a public hearing on a couple of ordinances. I will do that under new business. And I just, because it can't be said enough, we do have still some boards and commissions that we are filling vacancies for. I'll get into this in more detail a little later in the meeting, but the applications must be received by this coming Thursday, February 16th at 4:30. You can visit mytwinsburg.com for all openings. If you have any questions, Shannon Collins, our clerk of council, be more than happy to answer those for you. So again, I will mention that again under the new business section.
Back off that if you're done with your.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
I got those emails also that you got about the Glenwood area and accidents, and I'm guessing that's why you put out those speed things on Glenwood. I'm guessing that's why. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for being so quick and attentive. They had those. I don't know if you've seen them on Glenwood. They've got the radar guns there, letting people know their speed, and I thought that was awesome how fast you were attentive to that email, and I appreciate that. I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
We should have some
Thank the
data.
police department as well, because
Yeah.
they
Yes.
responded to
We should
questions.
have some data for Chief Mason to report on.
Correct.
Because I know those record high speed, low speed, average, time of day. I mean, they do more than just show you.
It gives you a lot of information, yeah,
Which is-
a lot of very good
Get some
information.
good analytics, exactly.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Moving right along, Mr. Mayor, your report this evening. Good evening, sir.
Thank
Happy
you, Mr.
Valentine's
Barr.
Day.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'll start out tonight. I only have a couple items, but I'll start out with one of the business visits that we made. Rebecca and I made this month, and we went to Crown Composites Tooling. And I'll tell you what, when we go to these places, it's amazing what they make there, and the products that are being created right here in the city of Twinsburg. It's a tooling company. It's a second-generation tooling company. He's doing very well, hiring employees. He's got a nice facility. We took a tour of it, which we usually get to do, and it's so nice to go there because these folks love to talk about their business and give us the background and the history and tell us about all their processes. And in this facility, they make I was surprised they make the wind turbine blades there. They're made right here in Twinsburg. And now when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you buy those driveway sticks for the snow, those are made right here in the city of Twinsburg. Those are made there as well. And they also make ladders there. The ladders that we buy, it's amazing what they push out of there. And the process is something too. I mean, it's incredible to see how everything's made, the tooling and all that stuff. It's really a nice facility. So I just want to give a shout out there to the folks there at Crown Composites because they're here in the city. They love being here in Twinsburg, and they love operating here. And we're happy to have them. We welcome them and hope to keep them here for a long time. Under my community interaction, I had the Scouts approach me, and it was the Cub Scout Pack 677. And these young men, they're working on a badge, and the badge is called Building a Better World. And one of the requirements is to meet with a community leader and talk about their role and important issues in the community. And they had a question and answers. So they wanted to meet. They asked if we can meet here in City Hall. So we did. I had them come in. Unfortunately, this room was used that night, so we met in the jury room. And I had all the scouts there, and all the dads were there with them. There were probably a total of about 12 of them, I think. And it was something that they gave me some ideas on what to feed them, what they wanted them to talk about. So I would bring that up, and they would ask me questions, and one of the craziest question that I was asked, or the funniest question, and most comical. He said, "So you're the mayor?" I go, "Yeah, I'm the mayor here." He says, "So does that mean are you rich?" I go, "No, I'm not rich. I am far from rich, but I am the mayor here." So yeah, they were concerned about that, how much money I was making. So yeah,
Future taxpayers
I
right
thought
there.
that was comical. Yeah, they're keeping check on it. But it was great to have those guys here and their parents here. I bought some cupcakes for them, and that was the best part of the meeting. Once I held those till last. I brought them cupcakes out, and they destroyed them. It was good. So I appreciate the Cub Scout Pack 677 for being here, and I also invited them to come to one of our council meetings.
Sure.
These young guys wanted to come in and see how the government operates and what's going on in their city. So we may see them here at some point in the future. I attended on Saturday at the library. They had Coffee with a Cause, and I had never been to one of these events. It's been going on for several years, and it's their annual cause is they benefit the Akron Children's Hospital Burn Unit, as well as the aluminum cans for burn children. And what they do there is they have teens from 7th grade to 12th grade come in and they perform live. And some of the things that they do is if they play an instrument, they'll play a song. They get up on stage there, or they have singers. They'll come up and sing, or they also have comedians there that'll come up and tell a few jokes. And it was really a nice event, a nice evening. They also have a bake sale there, so there's all kind of baked goods that they do, and it's somewhat of a fundraiser. Well, it is a fundraiser, and all that money goes to the burn unit. So that was a nice little event that I attended. And then finally, well, not finally, I wanted to talk about the reminder of the Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring the State of the City on March 23rd. I'll be giving my first State of the City at it's a breakfast meeting at the Hilton. Starts at 7:30 in the morning. The presentation should start by 8:15. And I think it's going to be a good morning. There'll be a lot of good information. I believe I mentioned it last night. We're changing it up a little bit. We're going to highlight not only me, but we're going to highlight the department heads, the folks that are here that do it each and every day for all of us here in the city. And, everybody gave kudos out to Nate tonight. And so everybody will be giving a little shout out. Ski will be there, or Dennis will be there, and he'll be giving his little presentation. And so you'll see all the department heads. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes off. I think they're going to do a great job and just highlight themselves as well. So all of our business get to meet the folks that are doing it for us. And then finally, I know it was said before, but I did attend the JEDI presentation last night. And I got to tell you what, and I don't want to repeat everybody else, but the police department did a great job in their presentation. And that was basically my comment last night. I'm just sorry there were not more people there to hear what's going on in our police department and how the training that they're getting and all the knowledge that we have pulled together in that department and what they're doing for us. So hopefully Mark can get that up and get that out, the video out there. I think it was a really good presentation. And again, I'm just sorry other people didn't get to see what's going on here because it's really a good thing. And shout out to both of our safety forces because I think we've got, top notch in both areas. So I appreciate them all. Other than that, that's all I have this evening. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any department heads reporting
We
this evening?
do. Tonight we're going to start with Sarah. I forgot her last time, so Sarah's going to go first this time.
All right.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
My report is short and quick tonight. I just want to say thank you to all the department heads for helping us to finish up the 2023 permanent appropriations. They will be on first reading at your next meeting. Finance committee this month, we have public works, so Nate and Dennis will be back to talk about their budgets, along with the building department and economic development. And then we're working with Rebecca on the tax incentive review committee information. We do that every year. We go through all the top and CRA agreements and we provide the tax collection information to her so that she can run those meetings. And that's all we've got right now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Nate.
You're like the man of the hour this evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone, again.
Do you blame him?
I'll keep mine short and sweet as well. I just wanted to bring to light a couple things we've been working on. I don't want to go into detail again for the loan process, but we've been working on that with multiple department heads, so I just want to give a thanks to all the departments that have been involved with that. I've been working closely with the law director, so thank you, with the general engineering service plan for that. And then lastly, I just wanted to give a shout out to two of my employees, being the sewer maintenance employees. I know I've spoken for the Capitol Board, and we started moving forward with a project this year to invest $40,000 into our Vector truck, so that we can prolong the life of that by 5 to 8 years, so we don't have to go out quickly to try to source a $500,000, $600,000 Vector truck. I just wanted to bring that to light. Those gentlemen are very talented at what they do. When I started here, I could not believe that truck was that old and that we still had it. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we keep that truck operational as long as we can and let those guys really shine on the talents that they have. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
If I can, just
Mayor,
piggyback
yeah.
off of him real quick, his sewer maintenance crew, Ed and Joe. I frequently get calls or emails to my office commending those guys for the work that they do. Those are the two guys that go out there, and if some resident has a problem, they'll go out to their property, and they check them out and see what's going on. They're out there in that Vector truck. They're cleaning the sewers. I mean, they're always out there in front of the public with the people, and I've never had one comment that's negative about these two guys. I get a lot of compliments on them, so give them a shout out again, and I always
will.
send that over to you to send to them, so we appreciate that.
Thank you, Nate.
All right, next we have Dennis Sadlowski from our service department.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and residents. Services Department year-to-date programs include our leaf pickup program. We completed 8 rounds in 2022. We serviced 5,557 homes where we dumped 4,922 yards of leaves. It's a good amount. Branch pickup program, we completed 8 rounds. Serviced 3,851 homes where we dumped 1,125 yards of chips. For our snow and ice removal program, snow plowing, we responded to 6 events this year, where we put 2,511 tons of salt on our roadways. Seems like a lot, didn't have a lot of snow, but they did a real good job out there. For our pothole patching program, we patched 1,758 potholes, where we used 28.25 tons of asphalt cold patch to do that. Streetlight outage repair program. Since we reestablished the program in November of 2021, we had 211 streetlight outages that have been reported. Since that time, 186 of these streetlights have been repaired. We are still reporting outages off the list we compiled back in December for repairs to be made. To date, we currently have 50 outages on the list that will be attended to and be repaired by the end of this month. Okay. At the beginning of the year, we started our tree lawn tree pruning program in the Heritage Estates subdivision. We're currently working in the Glenwood Preserve subdivision, hoping to complete this area by the end of this month. The next locations will be Sharonbrook Drive, Chairman Ledges, and Lake Plata. All the residents have received a letter explaining that the service department will first inspect the tree for any obstructions both to the roadway as well as the sidewalks. This will determine how much pruning the tree is actually going to receive at that point. To date, the crews have completed pruning 425 trees. So we're doing a significant bonus for our city and everything else. School buses ain't hitting these branches anymore, snow plows and garbage trucks. And that will conclude my report for this evening.
Mr. Pearl?
Dennis, when does branch pickup start?
April 3rd.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is because it's going to be 65 degrees tomorrow with high winds. And there's been all sorts of branches in our neighborhood, my neighborhood, that have fallen, that people are stacking up. And I've got a couple calls about, hey, how come nobody's picking up these branches? That's
Right.
because we're snow plowing now, even
We're
though there's no
snowplow-
snow.
Right,
And
right.
that,
We still be
so
shooting snow.
I wasn't sure if it was March or April. And,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, April
So
3rd.
branch pickup April 1st.
April 3rd.
Third,
Yep.
excuse me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
And finally, we have the fire chief, Chief Morgan.
Evening, Chief.
Good evening. So for the month of January, the fire department responded to 316 calls for service. That's actually down from 12% from last January. Last January was very busy. We ran in 361 calls, but this 316 calls is right on, well, it's right on par with what our average was for all of last year, so kind of maintaining the pace. We completed, I'm sorry, we had about 33% overlap in calls during that time as well. We completed 43 inspections and worked on 3 fire investigations. We also completed 121 training sessions totaling 452 hours of training for our personnel. Some notable events in the past month. On the 8th, we had a house fire on Maple Drive. Ultimately was a cooking fire on a basement, in a basement apartment. The damage was localized to the basement of the house, but the resident was burned, and he had to be transported by a mutual aid squad, and he went down to Akron Children's Hospital for treatment. And then on the 14th, we had a fire at Darrow Park Apartments, and that was also quickly extinguished, but it's one of those events that really gets our attention because where it was, it has a potential of impacting 40 families in one of those apartment buildings. So we're able to get it extinguished quickly. One family displaced, the neighboring families just had to deal with a little bit of smoke. And that was cleared up in short order. And we received some mutual aid from Reminderville and Solon for that call. The February weather warning siren test. We had one unit that worked properly. We are researching options, and I think that'll also be a topic on the safety committee meeting in March. So we're looking into that and seeing what we're going to do moving forward.
Chief, do other communities, have they abandoned the audio or
There's,
siren?
you're seeing different things in different communities. In fact, Hudson just installed their system maybe 5 years ago, but it's a different system that actually has PA capabilities. You can speak messages through it. But a lot of communities are abandoning the outdoor sirens, and the option we're actually looking at is potentially a hybrid system where we still maintain a couple of outdoor sirens, maybe in the park areas, near the golf course, that kind of a thing. But really, the quickest alert is coming right here, individually to everyone that carries one of these, which is just about everyone. Our concern is the population that does not yet carry a smartphone, and we're generally looking at our elderly population. So that would be the one piece that we want to look at. But our callback 911 communication system that we have in the city could be the solution for that piece. So we're looking at all those options, and hopefully we can maybe at the safety committee meeting
Be great, yeah.
have a direction to go from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to highlight Lieutenant Kettner. We announced last year that he completed his a bachelor's degree in fire administration through Bowling Green. And as part of that, he had to write a research paper as his capstone project. The paper, entitled Barriers Associated with Behavioral and Mental Health in Firefighters, was forwarded by his instructor to the International Public Safety Association Journal and was published in December. Great. So it's a pretty lengthy document, about 30 pages worth, and some real good work done by Lieutenant Kettner. So we want to just acknowledge his work. In January, we finally completed the installation of the access controls and the closed circuit TV systems at both stations. So we now have a more secure facilities to operate in. And we're still working on remodeling one of the kitchens at Station 1, the administrative kitchen. And we also had some significant drain repairs done in the bay floor. So, and that's been done by the service department as well. Finally, staffing-wise, we've kind of stayed stable in the last couple of months, but hopefully with next month's report, I'll be able to report on the hiring of a number of new full-time members. So that's my report for tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, moving on to legislation. This is, try and get through this as efficiently as possible. We do have several pieces this evening, so let's kick it off with Ordinance 04-2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Tinkers Creek Watershed Partners Incorporated.
All right, Ordinance 04-2023 now stands on its second reading. Moving along to Ordinance 05-2023.
An ordinance repealing Chapter 155 of the city's administrative code regarding the Glen Eagles Advisory Board.
Ordinance 05-2023 now stands on its second reading. Ordinance 08-2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Zone Code to facilitate a comprehensive update to the city's planning and zoning code.
Ordinance 08-2023 now stands on its second reading. Just a reminder for council that we plan on reading this piece of legislation 3 times. We'll be asking to place an emergency clause in the third and final reading so that we can enter into the agreement in a timely fashion. Ordinance 11-2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Chagrin Valley Engineering to provide right-of-way plans for the Ravenna Shepherd Broadway Richmond Road intersection project and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 11-2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I'll second. Yield.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any discussion about the emergency clause? All right, Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
All right, suspension of the 3 reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 11-2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any further discussion on 11-2023? Hearing none, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 11-2023 passes as an emergency, 7-0. Moving along to ordinance 12-2023.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Parent Asphalt Company for the 2023 road improvement project and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, place ordinance 12-2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Yield.
I'm not sure.
Yield.
Yield. I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds.
Just trying to move things
We'll
along.
get this. No, I appreciate that, fellas. Thank you. Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? All right, Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
All right, suspension of the 3 reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 12-2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any further discussion on the road program, this ordinance? All right, hearing none. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 12-2023 passes in an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 13-2023.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Northeast Ohio Trenching Services for the Ravenna Road and Town Center Improvement Contract and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 13-2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second? Mrs. Walker seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
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 Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
All right, suspension of the 3 reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 13-2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any additional discussion on ordinance 13-2023? All right, hearing none. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ordinance 13-2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Moving along to ordinance 14-2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with TMS Engineers Incorporated to provide transportation and traffic study services citywide and declaring an emergency.
This time I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 14-2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deeds seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Hearing none. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Suspension of the 3 reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 14-2023 as an emergency. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Deeds seconds. Any additional discussion on 14? I will say that the contract amount is not to exceed $46,790. Hearing no other discussion, Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Ordinance 14, 2023 passes an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 15, 2023.
An ordinance amending the current year temporary appropriations as established in Ordinance 98, 2022, the temporary appropriation ordinance for the city of Twinsburg for the year 2023, and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, excuse me, place ordinance 15, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I will second.
Mrs. Labby seconds, thank you. Any discussion on the three reading rule? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 15, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I will second.
Mrs. Labby seconds. Any additional discussion on 15, 2023? Hearing none, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 15, 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 16, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an amended LPA agreement with ODOT regarding the requirements for the federal funds associated with the Richmond, Broadway, Shepherd, Ravenna reconstruction project and declaring an emergency.
All right, this time I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 16, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. This time I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 16, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Labby seconds. Any further discussion on 16? Hearing none. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ordinance 16, 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Moving along, ordinance 17, 2023.
An ordinance affirming the annual wage increase for the non-bargaining unit employees effective January 1, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
This time I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, place ordinance 17, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
All right, suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 17, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any further discussion? I believe this wage increase is consistent with our collective bargaining units and what they have agreed to. Shannon, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ordinance 17, 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 18, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Twinsburg, Ohio to enter into a contract with Teamsters Local 436 and declaring an emergency.
This time I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 18, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deeds seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 18, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker. Seconds. Any further discussion on 18, 2023? Specifically, this is for Nate's folks down there in wastewater. Again, we've said it before, but it deserves repeating. They do a great job. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Ordinance 18, 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 19, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Burgess and Nyepel Incorporated to provide engineering services for the wastewater treatment plant and declaring an emergency.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 19, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 19, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any additional discussion on 19?
Just thanks again, Nate. I appreciate it.
No additional discussion. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Ordinance 19, 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional service contract with Motorola for the maintenance of the communication equipment and dispatch and declaring an emergency.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, place ordinance 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? I believe we just want to get this handled as quickly as possible so there's no lapse in coverage. Shannon, would you call the roll on the emergency, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Shannon, kindly call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 21, 2023.
An ordinance approving the recodification, editing, and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Twinsburg, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 21, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deeds seconds. Any discussion on the emergency clause? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 21, 23 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I will second.
Mrs. Labby seconds. Any additional discussion on ordinance 21? Hearing none. Shannon, call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Ordinance 21, 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Moving right along to resolution 22,
A res-
2023.
A resolution acknowledging council's receipt and review of the monthly financial statements submitted by the Finance Department for July through December 2022.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 22, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deeds seconds. Any? Pardon me. Mr. Bellin seconds. Is there any further discussion on resolution 22, 2023? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Resolution 22, 2023 passes 7-0. Got all distracted there at the end.
I know he's playing around with his mic.
You know, oh, we got a lot of yeses coming, so.
Mark is gonna string you up. All right. Ordinance 23, 2023.
An ordinance amending both Chapter 135 and 925 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding the Parks and Recreation Department.
Ordinance 23, 2023 now stands on its first reading. Ordinance 24, 2023.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1164 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding fences.
Ordinance 24, 2023 now stands on its first reading. Ordinance 25, 2023.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1173 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding signs.
Ordinance 25, 2023 now stands on its first reading. Ordinance 26, 2023.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Nick Mayer Ford Lincoln for the service pickup trucks and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, place ordinance 26, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Just want to get these things ordered ASAP.
By the truck.
Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 26, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any additional discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ordinance 26, 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 27, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for, accept, and enter into an OEPA Water Pollution Control Loan Fund agreement on behalf of the city of Twinsburg for planning, design, and/or construction of wastewater facilities and designating a dedicated repayment source for the loan and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, place ordinance 27, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I'll second. Yield.
Mrs. Walker, seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Just want to try and get this handled so we can maintain our design timeline. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 27, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any additional discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ordinance 27, 2023 passes as an emergency, 7-0. You know, we should really number these things in sequential order, make it a lot easier. Just throwing it out there. All right, unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. I'm gonna go right down the list again. Mr. Deeds, good evening.
Good evening. Nothing new to add tonight.
That's what I like to hear. Mr. Bellin.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Post.
It was nice to spend Valentine's Day with all of my Valentines here at City Hall. Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Fury.
The real celebration is tomorrow, which is February 15th, which is Michael Fury's 26th birthday,
Oh,
as
very-
well as
Happy birthday.
Amanda Ferentz, another Twinsburg resident.
I thought you were talking about the Rotary meeting tomorrow night.
No, I'm going to be at the birthday party. You
Oh.
should see the cake I got.
I'm there.
Thank you. That's all I have this night.
Mrs. Walker. Any?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Labby.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Speedy.
I have nothing further tonight, thanks.
Mr. Vazana.
Nothing further.
That is spectacular. All right, I do have a couple things, as I know you're all thrilled that I have to talk more. First is the City of Twinsburg, Ohio, notice of a public hearing. We did read a couple of ordinances tonight, specifically ordinance 24, 2023 regarding fences, and ordinance 25, 2023. We are going to conduct a public hearing before Twinsburg City Council regarding the adoption of those ordinances. Said ordinances, if adopted, shall be subject to referendum. This hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 6:45. That is a council meeting evening, so it will be before the caucus meeting here at the Twinsburg Government Center on Ravenna Road. Residents may voice their opinions in person, writing, or through a representative. If you have any questions, please reach out to our esteemed colleague,
That was March when?
14th. 1 month from tonight. also still have available appointments for boards and commissions. We need to get those taken care of before the filing deadline, which is Thursday, February 16th, 2023 by 4:30. You can visit mytwinsburg.com if you have any interest in applying. We are currently seeking positions for the following boards and committees. The Architectural Review Board has 3 openings. The Board of Zoning Appeals is looking for residents of Ward 2 and Ward 3 to participate. The Capital Improvement Board is seeking people from all wards that want to participate in that process. It's actually a very, very interesting committee if you want to know how we spend our money on big projects. The Charter Review Commission has 9 openings. The Environmental Commission has 4 openings. Mrs. Walker and I kind of cut our teeth on that committee, so it's a lot of fun to do some cool stuff. Parks and Recreation has Ward 1, Ward 2, and an at-large position available for Parks and Rec. And Planning Commission is still seeking candidates from Wards 3, 4, and 5. So if you do have any interest in those, mytwinsburg.com, or you can reach out to the clerk. My Valentine's Day gift to my wife was that I left her alone for the evening. Her Valentine's Day gift to me was a coupon for telling me I'm right, even though she knows, quote, in her bones, she is correct. So I will be cashing that in at some point in the future, probably not real long from now. We have no one to excuse from the meeting this evening. Do we have any other new business, Shannon or Sarah? All right. So, at this time, which is 9:08 p.m., I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury, second. Any discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your patience.